Hello, welcome to the One Life Church devotional series. We cover the entire Bible in 20 months. Well, today's chapters are 2 Chronicles 24 and 25. Now behind me is this beautiful ocean. It's a lovely day. And I've just come off the sea actually with a friend of mine who I taught how to paddle many years ago. And we did a doozy together. He sat in the back of my boat. But he was a fascinating man. He loved to learn. He always was asking questions. And he's become a far better paddler than me, actually. He's done many doozies, fish rivers, and he's become an expert in paddling. So it was a great joy to be out in the ocean with him today. Now, the story we're going to look at is a guy called Jehoiada. He's the priest, remember, that hid young Joash, the king, in the temple. And then he led Judah from behind, guiding King Joash. Now, the tragedy is that Joash was a good king while Jehoiada had his arm around him. And so Jehoiada organizes who he marries. He pulls the strings. And in fact, the only decision we see Joash making is sort of like in his early 20s, he decides to rebuild the temple. And so with the help of Jehoiada, he collects a lot of money, he puts a kist outside there, gets people to put the money in, then he hires in masons and iron workers and metal workers, and he rebuilds the temple. But when Jehoiada dies, Joash is at sea. And the terrible thing is that he followed the advice of his officials. And he began to abandon the temple and abandon the worship of God. And so Jehoiada's son, the new priest, Zechariah, comes and he says, excuse me, King Joash, remember when you followed my dad? You were, pursuing God, but now what's going on? And so they actually stone Zechariah. And the words said that he forgets how kind Zechariah's dad was to him. He gave him everything he had, and yet he kills the son because he's saying to him, he's calling him out as a prophet, and he's calling him out and he's saying, return to the Lord. Now, as he's dying, this young Zechariah, he's dying and he says, may the Lord see what you're doing. And well, eventually, Joash is assassinated while he's injured, lying on his bed. Tragic story. But I would like to point the blame here, in a way, back to Jehoiada the priest. When he was training him, I think he was probably doing too much for him. You see, you've got to allow the person you're training to make the decisions, to own the conviction. You can't just be following your instructions. I mean, the fact that Jehoiada picked his wives, did he even ever say who he married? We need to be guiding people, not deciding for them. And we need to be coaching them and making them strong. We need to make them God-dependent, not us-dependent. Now, this applies to raising your own kids. I'm raising my son. And now he's at the stage, he's 18 years old. I'm not making his decisions for him. I'm helping guide him, but he's got to own the convictions. Same with the people that we've got in our employ that are working for us. If you mother them, ladies, or overfather them and make all the decisions for them, then when you're gone, they regress. They at sea. Now, Joash had a son, Amaziah, and when he came to power, his first instinct was just to kill the people that killed his dad. And you know what? He started out quite well, like his dad did. In fact, he paid 100 shekels of silver to the Israelites and said, come and help us in battle. And the prophet came to him and said, no, you mustn't do that. These Israelites don't serve God, so don't align yourselves with them. So then Amaziah says, well, I've already paid 100 shekels of silver for 100,000 troops. What am I going to do with that money? And the prophet says to him, God can give you more where that came from. And so you know what he does? He listens to him and he says, okay. And he goes into battle with a much smaller army, and God gives him 20,000, enemies into his hand. They killed 20,000 people. Amazing. But then he comes back from this victory, all cocky, thinking that he had done it. And he brings back their gods, and he lets the people of Judah worship these gods. And then he gets so cocky, he says to Israel, the ones that didn't come fight with him, I want to fight you now. I didn't even need you there. I can fight you. and they defeated him. Both these kings, father and son, Joash and Amaziah, started well, ended badly. I can't help thinking it's got something to do with their discipleship, something to do with their training. To me, as I look at this, I think to myself, and I ask God, give me grace when I train young men, not just how to paddle canoes, but I want them to run past me. I want them to be better than me. I want them to have stronger conviction in me. That's leadership.